Welcome back. It's 8:05. Everyone's looking very bright-eyed. It's my pleasure to introduce our first flash speaker. Sravana Borkataky-Varma will be giving us a talk on Imaginal Siddhis, Engines of Insight. So please join me in welcoming Sravana.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Perfect. I want to actually begin with thanking the team, everybody that has made this possible. I know all the grad students, the tech, everyone outside the room, inside the room, and wherever you are this Saturday morning. I really want to thank you. I know how hard it is and how much grief I give you, John, for like the 5 minutes you take away from my life, but I appreciate you. So that's me. I always complain, but I still show up on time, 2 minutes late. Again, thank you, Jeff, for the invitation. The title of my presentation today, the talk is Imaginal Siddhis, Engines of Insight. It is October 2012. I'm conducting fieldwork in Assam, a state in India. My primary research topic was Kundalini yoga, and women's bodies in the space of goddess Tantra, Hindu goddess Tantra. Within the first few days of being on the field, the term Siddhis pop up. Loosely translated for now, this term may be understood as supernatural powers or capabilities. Now, Lorelei yesterday morning, and that's when I was teasing Jeff this morning, I was like, Jeff, you said there was no plan to these flash talks. How come both mornings we start with Hindu, Tantra, Siddhis? And so I was speaking to Lorelei, and Lorelei is like, because, Shravana, that's the right way to go. I said, I agree. So you heard Lorelei speak about it, and she speaks about this phenomena yesterday really beautifully. She gave examples of tangerines coming out of thin air, roses, and so forth, and she talks about it. I'll be speaking about the same phenomena, but of course with a slightly different twist to it. I was getting nervous, though, when she started talking. I was like, oh my God, that's my talk. What am I going to do tonight? And so anyway, I have a plan. So I had no intention of delving deeper into siddhis, but the term would not leave me. So I decided to add the following questions to my fieldwork questionnaire. What are siddhis? Do you believe you have been blessed with siddhis? If the response was yes, then I asked the following questions. What siddhis do you have or have you experienced? When was the first time you experienced them? How did you feel when you experienced them the first time? Can you tell me a story about your experience? I gathered several stories, and again, Lorelei said this. This is very, very, very common in our worlds. Like everybody speaks of siddhis. So I included some in my dissertation, but I never delved into it. Fast forward a decade, Jeff invites me to the opening of the archives of the Impossible Gathering last year, and many of us were here last year. And usually I sit somewhere at the back, siddhis pop back into my head. Yet again, I shut it out. I'm like, I'm not dealing with you. You are too complicated. I returned to Harvard University, and a few weeks later, I'm sitting in a room full of people discussing the imaginal, the active imagination as proposed by philosopher theologian Henry Corbin. Siddhis pop back into my head yet again. Now, it's important to note that the conference at Harvard occurred at the end of the academic year 2021-2022. So fall of 2021, Professor Charles Stang, who also spoke yesterday, came into my office, and this is what he says. And this is, if you were here for Charlie's talk last night, he speaks every word is articulated very well, unlike us, sometimes we go, blah, blah, blah. He doesn't speak like that, okay? So he comes and he says, and I quote, Shravana, you have to be part of the Divine Sophia reading group. I was like, Charlie, why? He says, because you need to be part of the reading group. I'm like, Charlie, I do not study Christianity. When you talk, I'm Googling in the background because I don't even understand the words you're using. And so Charlie smiles, and this is again what he says in the classic Charlie style. Shravana, life is tough. I'm sure you will survive. That's the end of that conversation. 2 years later, I not only survived, as you can see, I'm still standing, but I'm also really happy I read as best as I could and participated in very, very, very confusing conversations. And I mean very, like there were so many days I would not understand anything Charlie and his team were talking, but I stuck on. So at this conference at Harvard, when my brain is again screaming, Siddhis, 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 I did not shut it out. It took me 1 more year, prompted by this invitation to speak, I decided to drink the magic potion. It was time to make meaning of Siddhis. It was enough of saying, I don't want to deal with you. So in academia, the oft-cited scholar, practitioner, scholar, and practitioner, these divides fail to properly categorize me. I call myself now a practitioner, scholar, guide of Hindu goddess Tantra, Śākta Tantra, for the people who know. There are many types of practitioners. Some engage in ritual, some have a deep relationship with the text, some practice with the guru, some are solo seekers. Similarly, being a scholar is not restricted to someone who has a degree from a college or a university. A scholar is any person who's committed to learning and engaging with primary text, oral commentaries, and secondary literatures. And some people do all of these things. So I'm not going to make the divide saying, oh, you have to have this kind of a degree to be a scholar and so forth. Clairvoyance and clairaudience abilities were integral to the ways of my being, and that is from as I was a child. This prompted my parents to seek advice, and I underwent a several-stage initiation into the goddess Kamakhya lineage. This is a temple, a lineage that comes from Assam, India. In case you were confused, I'm from India, and so just in case. And this started at the age of 8. And then at about 15 years, I received a 4th stage consecration, which is called as Abhishekam. Now, Barbara Newman yesterday beautifully explained Diksha or initiation, so I'm not going to go into the depths of it. If you were not here, sorry, your loss, but you should have been here for that talk. That was wonderful. So Barbara, if you're here, thank you. I really enjoyed what you said yesterday. It was very moving. All this is to say that I was born into the tradition, and it was decades later I decided to get a PhD in the study of religion from Rice University, and Jeff was my advisor. And we had many moments. A moment where I did not want to come back from field trip. I called him like really early morning. It's good that Jeff wakes up at 4 a.m. in case you did not know. So he picked up my phone, and all he kept saying through my bawling session on the phone is, Shravana, get on a plane. Shravana, get on a plane. Shravana, get on a plane. And I did get on a plane, literally an aircraft. Today, I teach in academic as well as non-academic spaces, including religious, spiritual, and secular spaces. So that's who I am. So I'm a professor at a university, but I also lead retreats, and so on and so forth. So what I propose to do next is rather ambitious and has possibly not been done before. I'm going to bring Siddhis in conversation with Korban. Siddhis are common topics in Tantras and among Tantra practitioners, as Lorelei said yesterday. Siddhi provides special abilities to reveal the hidden, like the past lives, or even communicate with departed souls, much as we see with Western psychics and mediums. They may also produce an object from thin air. We heard all of this yesterday. Siddhi experiences reported by field informants and my own experiences as an initiate show a phenomenology where Korban's imaginal is the conduit for such experience, and understanding the imaginal helps lift the mysterious veil on Siddhis. I will divide the remaining time into 3 parts. In part 1, I will define Tantra and share some experts from my field notes on Siddhis. In part 2, I will summarize Corban's theory on the imaginal. And in part 3, I'll bring Corban into conversation with Siddhis as understood in the Hindu goddess tantric tradition. Part 1. There are several definitions of Tantra. It is a messy term, and a student of mine a few years back aptly said, it is unpinnable. So you can't put a pin anywhere. The histories are complex, the transmissions are intricate. So here's confession time, and I have a Jeff story here. Soon after I completed my candidacy exams, Jeff said, Sravana, you'll have to define Tantra. This is part of my, after the candidacy, we have like an oral. You cannot be a scholar practitioner and not have a definition for yourself. A decade later, I can confess that the ask was so daunting that I did not do any writing for 1 year. Jeff would ask dissertation writing progress. He has this way, like, he'll send an email or grab you. So, all the Jeff students, talk to the Jeff alum group. We have so many secrets to share. So every time he would say, how's the progress? I would just say, it's going. Nothing was going. Nothing. I was doing nothing. But now I can say that. So today I'm happy. I'm really happy, feel very grateful that Jeff pushed me to think about how I will define this very messy, complicated term for myself. So here we go. I consider a ritual space, philosophical thought, and or text to be tantric if it engages the following features, and it must engage all 4. Not 1, not 2, not 3, all 4. The human body, including the bodily fluids, are not rejected. In fact, they are essential. Number 2, discipline activation of subtle esoteric anatomies so that chakras, nadis, kundalini energy become the catalyst to engage with the divine in the vertical plane and help dissolve the binaries, whatever those binaries may be. The intentional, and intentional is important here, use of mantra, mandalas, and or yantras helps transcend the divide between microcosm and macrocosm. And the intentional really brings me back to Barbara, because you did talk about, did your friend really mean it? Was there an intention? And you touched upon it yesterday. The divine macrocosm resides within the microcosm of beings. So we are the divine as much the divine is us. All the above features may be put into service of liberation and to be achieved while living, jivana mukti. So this is how I would consider something Tantra. As you can see, this is not New Age Tantra. There are no orgies. There are no sexual acts. So I'm very, very sorry to disappoint you. I am a square when it comes to that, so sorry. So in this tantric worldview, siddhis are best described by quoting how both adepts and practitioners explain the term. Ranjan, and I'm giving a fictitious name here, one practitioner said, and I quote, people with siddhis are able to identify the causes of mysterious situations and problems, whereas a common person cannot. Many people in modern times tend to believe that if something cannot be explained, it cannot be understood. If it cannot be understood, it cannot be taught. If it cannot be taught, it cannot be learned. If it cannot be learned, then it cannot be true. If it contains no truth, it cannot exist. But according to Ranjan, that is not the correct approach to understanding siddhis. Siddhis do not operate within the metrics of logical explanation. Something else is at play. But Ranjan could not explain what is that something else. What is at play? So you can tell why I did not want to delve into siddhis. Almost everyone talks about it. No one can explain it. Nobody can say how I can get one, because we want one. And so if you can't get one, you can't teach one, you can't learn one, yet it happens. How does it happen? So we now move to part 2. Here we will turn to Corban. The central place of the imagination in human experience is the heart of Corban's extensive trope of work. Korban is primarily known as a scholar of Islamic mysticism. His leanings towards Iranian Shiism and how his idea of Islam may not have been inclusive of other Islamic sects and thoughts are outside the scope of this talk, so I'm not going to engage with that. What is critical for us to delve into here is his theory of creative imagination and the mundus imaginals. The category of imaginal was not Henry Korban's creation. And here I'm quoting Tom Cheatham, who says, it has been in circulation in the study of unusual or extreme religious states for some 8 decades before Korban began to use the term in his own specific senses in the 1960s. Korban explains that he derived the term from French, and as is his own neologistic expression, le monde imaginal, or the imaginal world, a phrase that is not common French and dates from 1964 on. Korban also tells us that he struggled with his word choice, as he did not want to signal the imaginary, as the French imaginaire certainly would. According to Korban, imagination provides access to the world where the conflict between theology and philosophy, between faith and knowledge, between symbol and history is resolved. Much like what Ranjan articulated during the field interview, it is something else happens. Thereby, imagination becomes an organ of perception. Without imagination, all the phenomena of religious experiences are impossible. Imagination gives us access to a realm of beings, an objective world that Korban came to call the mundus imaginalis, the imaginalist world. Korban's imaginal operates with a matter-of-fact approach and acceptance of phenomena like clairvoyance and clairaudience. Reflecting on the spiritual diary of masters of Sufism such as Ibn Arabi, where personal events occurring in the invisible dimensions are mapped to happenings in the present by these masters, Korban writes, and I quote, "The cosmology of Sufism possesses a dimension lacking in our view of the world, which takes account of such experience. It guarantees the objective reality of the supersensory world in which are manifested the effects of spiritual energy, whose source is the heart and whose organ is the active imagination. Thereby, this active imagination is also creative imagination. It is also the divine realm. The exploration of the subtle realm requires participation between the human and the divine and is at once discovery and creation. By doing so, Korban states that the hermeneutics and ontology are inseparably joined. The schism between thought and being is healed by spiritual hermeneutics. Your mode of understanding corresponds to your mode of being. In other words, imagination has the inherent potentiality to reveal the concealed only by continuing to veil it. Once a person, that is the visionary, achieves a level of clarity, they can discriminate between the hidden and the manifest. Thereby, the imaginal vision transmits the truth of the coincidenta oppositorum, such that the opposites are identical in virtue of their opposition, and hence there is no manifestation of the imaginative presence that is not at the same time an occlusion, a both and structure. It is in this both and, visible yet improbable, visionary experience and simultaneously an empirical fact that siddhis come into being. It is here that something implausible like siddhis become possible. Part 3. This is where Korban helps us to unpack siddhis. Many, if not all, tantric practitioners, self included, from the day we take initiation, which is called as diksha, into the path, the lineage, so we take diksha into the path, the lineage. There are many dikshas that we take. We cultivate an active relationship with the Ishtadeva or Devi, however you want to call it, cherished deity. This is by no means an imaginary exercise. I often describe this relationship as BFF. Like, the little kids in middle school say, best friend forever. Yes, it is the best friend forever. When I enter the ritual space and I invoke my Ishtadevi, My active imagination transforms into an organ of perception. Now, some days, this transformation only lasts for a few minutes. And then there are days when it may last for a few days. Upon entering this liminal realm, I'm simultaneously discovering and co-creating. The human, that is me, and the divine, that is my Ishtadevi, engage and operate as and both. Epistemologically speaking, as an and both being, hermeneutics and ontology are inseparably joined. Our mode, that is when I say our here, it is Ishtadevi plus me, of understanding corresponds with my human mode of being. Now, I know this is not the reality for everyone, so let us take an example here that is of a medium. Sorry, I should have clicked. Anyway, so the medium is the lady who is with the blue. The left images are of her. So I've written about Mamuni from the Tiva tribe. Back in 2013, Mamuni was one of the 2 women in Tiva tribe who offered a ritual where the families of recently deceased person contact the departed soul. Between 2013 and 2016, I recorded several what I call speaking to the dead sessions. All sessions had about 40 to 60 people in attendance. At the beginning of the session, Mamuni must summon the right Atma. Now, the Atma is the departed soul. And that Atma must come and reside in her. Now, it is very crucial to establish whether the Atma present is in fact the departed soul of the person the family is seeking to get in touch get in touch through this ritual. So it was the same question that someone asked you, Barbara, like what if it was somebody else? So it is very, very important to establish credibility here. So the family who has summoned or who's asked for this ritual will ask some very personal questions. What is your favorite food? They will bring a child in front and say, what would you call this child? And this will obviously not be the formal name of the child. Or where did you live? All kinds of very, very personal questions that is believed that Mamuni could only respond if she gets the answer directly. There was no way she can answer these very personal questions. And this would sometimes go on for hours. In fact, that is establishing that the spirit is right is what takes the longest amount of time here. This is particularly interesting as there's something empirical about it. That is, the family checks the identity with the facts that Mamuni supposedly would not know. So when I wrote about Mamuni in 2017, I ended the article, and I quote my own words here, as a scholar who observed many sessions of communicating with the dead among the Tivas and interviewed many devotees of Mamuni, I began my journey with deep skepticism and found it challenging to accept Mamuni's oracular abilities. But with every passing year, after observing many sessions, I've shifted from being a skeptic to a deeply perplexed witness. Yet, I could not grasp how this worked, how Mamuni had a relationship with these non-physical experiences. So I wish I was at the Korban fan club back then, but I was not. And there is a big Korban fan club, especially in the Center for Study for World Religion and Harvard Divinity School, led by some people here, not to be named, but I was not. And thinking through Korban, I now posit that Mamuni engages the imaginal as another sense organ. The imaginal becomes the engine for the insights she relates to the family. She speaks to the dead not using her physical mouth, but via her imaginal perceptions, which are both revelations and co-creations between her and the imaginal. I'm aware that while Korban's theory may effectively apply to siddhis, wherein successful contact is made with the departed, it poses a rather difficult challenge if and when siddhis are also understood as Lorelei presented in the context of physical objects or apparitions. For Korban, events that occur in the imaginal are invisible to physical eyes. They do not happen in the realm of experience of measurable time and space. In the context of what is seen by the physical eye, the adept producing the siddhi is manipulating space and time. whereas mundus imaginalis refers to a realm parallel to that of the ordinary sense experience. In such cases, I find thinking through what Ibn Arabi designates as himma helpful. Himma, as I've come to understand right now, I'm still studying, is a force of an intention so powerful as to project and realize a being external to the being who conceives the intention. Himma can thereby apply to parapsychology. In the case of physical objects, the active imagination serves the himma, which by its concentration is capable of producing changes in the outside world. In other words, the active imagination, the Gnostic's heart projects, what is reflected in it, that which it mirrors and the object of which she thus concentrates her creative power, her imaginative meditation becomes the apparition of an outward external psychic reality. After a decade of running away from siddhis, I finally arrived at a point where the magic of siddhis has transformed into engines of insight. Thank you.